That's connecting. Make sure everything else is off. Quit. Let's see. Right. We are now streaming here. Let me turn off all my notifications here. Oh no. All right. We are good to go now. All right. Well, welcome. This is actually for people that don't know me. I've been doing the Creative Brew for some years now. Just hit episode 232. So if you get a chance, check out that last episode. Not everyone's supposed to be in your corner. That's the last episode of the I guess of the show for this year. But they're just really sort of pulling some things from wrestling and understanding that you can have a lot of people in your circle, but there's only gonna be a few people in your corner. I try to pull a lot of things from wrestling, and I always feel like I always saw it as just a sport, but now I see so many philosophical meanings from the sport, and actually in any sport in general, if you stay in it long enough. But I find myself getting more insight, and that actually allows me to stay in the wrestling more, knowing like, hey, there's so many things, so many nuggets that I'm pulling that I'm having to teach myself about life, that I know is just definitely representative of the sport of wrestling. And I know if I stay in it long enough, I'm going to get more answers. And at the same time, I'm going to get more challenges too. But I think with you and me and people that listen to this episode, you'll get a chance to know more about Rich. But both of us have been in wrestling for a while, and I'm sure he can definitely elaborate on his story if you haven't heard it before. He's got a lot of stories, but I definitely want to bring him on for this special edition. This is actually called the Out of Bounds, and I think I'm going to turn this. I may turn this. I keep saying I may. This is probably going to end up being a new podcast. But I wanted to talk about more definitely about wrestling, about sports, life, but also too about maybe just other topics that people feel like are out of bounds. For me personally, I'm a very curious spirit, and I'm always sort of learning. Not to say I don't agree with everything, but I'm always wanting to understand where people are coming from with things, and I think that allows me to be really more empathetic for people, or really try to understand where people are coming from with various things. And I think it gives me a broader insight and perspective. But hey, tell a little bit about you, Rich. Before we get going.
Oh, where to start? Well, my name is Rich Dalton. Been friends with. Well, I guess I've known you for quite a few years. I don't even know if you remember me from years back. When I showed up.
I remember the version 1.0 of you.
Oh yeah, that was quite the different version of me. I don't even know if we ever talked back then, to be honest. And then obviously we met again about what 2.5 years ago, and on this new version or this new journey that I've been on, and obviously wrestling is what has brought us together in many different ways, and wrestling, like you said, not only is it a sport but it's a lifestyle, and that was the big difference for me, compared to any other sport that I got I really immersed myself into wrestling, and that really changed everything for me. But right now I teach martial arts. I try to be have service to people and try to help people the best that I can, especially coming from where I came from with all that I went through, healing and recovering from lots of diseases and disabilities. I feel it's my gift that I need to share with the world, because holding on to it, it not only would feel and seem selfish, but it wouldn't be nearly as pleasurable to holding on to it myself.
Yeah. You know what, I think you sort of bring up something interesting because I know there's so many people that they deal with a lot of issues, deal with a lot of things that they mask. I mean, and this is across the board. This could be there's a lot of athletes that when you look behind the curtain, they're dealing with a lot of stuff. But even with you in particular, what what was the point that made you want to give more? I mean, I know you were going, and I know you. I've seen you before, and then seen you maybe I've seen the 2.0 version of you, but I just I didn't know maybe for you what was that point to where hey, you felt like there was some kind of change, or was there any point for you hey, I can see myself changing, or I knew things were shifting. I didn't know what that point was for you.
Gosh, that's something I thought about a lot myself, and honestly, it was multiple rock bottoms, and I that's all I referred to them was rock bottoms until a couple months ago, and I started realizing that a lot of these rock bottoms were near death experiences, and those near death experiences really shine a light on everything in a much different perspective, from overdoses to just I guess mental breakdowns. But almost all of them had to do with mental breakdowns and overdoses due to drugs, and those drugs were then again being used to cope with these overwhelming feelings from the mental aspect. God, so each and every one of them played a huge part in helping me, assisting me, show me a different perspective, and helping me realize that I couldn't continue living this life that I was living. And that was even before the drugs really helped with everything else, because if it wasn't for the drugs, I don't think it really pushes me pushes me overboard to seek out help, to realize that I need change. I was at a job that I absolutely hated. I was just putting myself in situations that I absolutely hated. And then looking back, what I realized, it wasn't the job, it wasn't the marriage, it wasn't the family, it was me. It was always me. It was every single event was me. And until I healed me, then I was just going to keep dragging me along to the next place that I moved to, the next job that I had, the next relationship that I got into, because I wasn't healing me. And so gosh, each and every one of those, like I said, near death experiences and um rock bottoms really helped me to see things from a different perspective, and realize that not only did I need change, but I could change. Because I didn't really think I could before. And so, like you brought up earlier, I use a lot of distractions, from food, from drugs, from alcohol, from TV, from Netflix, from sleeping, from napping, from women, from porn, from just stats. I used to absolutely love stats, sports, movies. I'd be focused so much on everybody else's life that I wouldn't have to deal with mine.
Yeah, yeah, it you bring up some really good topics because that I mean I think that might be the what's going on with a lot. I think with a lot of people, I know I have the I'm very fortunate to be able to, and I know for people that don't know us, we do a lot of volunteer work with humanity showers, and I know I'm always working with a lot of different art organizations and aside from wrestling, but I find myself, sort of observing and sort of hearing what people are saying, and there's a lot of people that, they have a lot of dreams and aspirations and things that they want to do, but being able to, you have to override the habits that you've already put in place, and those habits can be hard. And I know something that I've heard before, like a lot of people, especially coming around this time of the year, everybody wants to start over, start fresh, and it's been one of those to where it's very hard to turn a moving ship. If your habits, I would equate your habits or your patterns, everything to just one large boat. You're not going to be able just to turn that thing like a motorboat. Like you have to go all the way down and then gradually turn it back around. So it's just one of those where like things never happen overnight, but at the same time they do. Whatever changes that you're trying to seek, it won't happen overnight. But if you consistently, you know, put in those things to override maybe your old programming, then that's where your body starts to change and your mind starts to shift and you start seeing things from a different perspective. Um, Definitely, sometimes playing the victim game could be some of the one of the worst things because it's like, hey, why is life happening to me like this? Like, why is this happening? Why is this happening? Putting that blame on everyone else instead of saying, like I'm like I'm the culprit, like I'm the one causing this. And you can control, like I said, you can control how you want to feel. Not to say people, things happen. I'm not saying that, but you could get up and say, you know what, instead of me feeling like this or feeling like, oh, it's just another, Thursday or it's just another Friday, like we have to like learn we have to learn how to start like shifting our energy a little bit. Maybe switching over to something like, hey, you know what? I'm alive. I get a chance to. I don't have everything that I want, but right now I've got everything that I need. And sometimes it's understanding like those little shifts. And I think personally for me, just like little things that's happened to me. Even like my mom passing, even with my mom's dad passing, that were really around the same time. And then I mean, and working with really work doing more volunteer work that has radically shifted the way that I even compete, the way that I see things when I'm competing. Um, I'm not so tied up on wins or losses anymore. Not to say, you want to do well. I'm not saying that, but at the same time, like I'm not rooted into saying, okay, if I win or lose, that is my, I am a failure if I lose. No, it's like that's something that I find myself gradually overriding now, saying, you know what, I want to compete because I love the process of just learning more about myself, um, and see where that goes. Um, but yeah, I mean, I said I think you brought up some really, really, really good points.
Well, the one thing you said that I really liked was things are going to happen, and we can't control them. These things outside of us. But the one thing I learned that we can control is our reaction to them. And so for me, once I learned breath work, and once I really dove deep into breath work and fasting and meditation, I realized that I can control my emotions, which is before I thought my emotions controlled me. I thought that was who I was, that was how I was going to be, and I couldn't control that. And so when my mom passed and all these things happened to me, because what I also realized was I manifested all these things. I manifested losing my kids and losing my career and becoming homeless, and because I put all my focus onto these things, and as I kept thinking about them, as I kept focusing on them, I then kept spiraling down this hole, and all I kept seeing was worst case scenarios, and my emotions were completely out of control because I didn't think I could control them. So all I'm doing is following these emotions down this deep dark rabbit hole, and not even thinking about, not even focusing on, not even imagining the solutions. And again, I loved your analogy of the big ship, because you can turn that wheel, and it's going to take you maybe a day or two or a week or two, or a month or two to change. But at the same time, you can change right now. You can make that shift right now. It is before you can actually see the results. It's going to take some time, yes, but you can make the decision right here and right now to say, you know what, I'm no longer going to play the victim. I'm no longer going to allow my emotions to get the best of me. And again, as you said, it is going to be for me, it's been a lifelong. It's going to be a lifelong. I don't want to call it battle. Decision, lifelong decision to make the decision each and every day to choose me, to choose to choose love, to choose peace, to choose myself, and not putting all these other things that get my way in front of me, or and see them as distractions, and avoid, not avoid them, but embrace them.
Yeah, yeah, I like the embrace. I think that's something I generally tell my my wrestling class afterward. It's something that we really been little concepts and topics that we've really been, talking about in our group, but it really talked about understanding like our dark side, knowing that, we can fight it, but I mean, ultimately, we keep fighting and we're going to fuel it. And sooner or later, you're gonna have to get to a point to where you learn how to embrace it, come into terms with it because you needed it. I mean, the things that happened to you, like you needed that dark side to make it through certain parts of your life. So don't fight it. I mean, that's a part of you. That's something that you needed in that situation. So learning like to understand, like, you know what, this is who I am. Understanding, yes, I do have my faults, and understanding how to love it and embrace it. And I think ultimately those things start to dissolve when we stop seeing it as, man, like this is the bad part of me or this is the good part. Like, no, this is all me. Um, I'm just using various aspects in certain situations, but it's me. That's something that I really, I think personally for me, sort of coming to terms with like knowing that yeah, I mean, sometimes I can be, um, stubborn. I can be, just a lot of those things that sort of got me to where I am. But at the same time, too, knowing that, even those rough parts about me, those things that I don't like about me, like understanding like how to love it, or at least give it more love. And at the same time, that stuff that I've been trying to fight, ultimately, like that stuff just in time it'll dissolve away. I'm not saying it's going to be overnight like we talked about, but it might be years down the road to where like you finally come into terms with yourself and do that, being healed and like you and like what you've been doing. And I've like I said, I've seen it firsthand, like you being able to share that love and give that to others. All that stuff circulates, all that energy circulates out. We can't sit there and just take something. That's actually something I've told my group too. Like what I give to you, it's not just for you. Like you use it, take it for your life, and then you share that to someone else. You do that, you're gonna save someone else's life in the process. What I tell you, it's not just for you. Like even wrestling, even coaching, sharing technique, like the, that's not just for you. You use it for what you need it for. But then ultimately, you need to share those philosophies or those concepts or that technique. You have to share it to someone else. That is the way of that's like the teacher student model. Like that. That's an ongoing process. You have to keep that going. But what do you matter of fact, what do you feel like about that? Sort of like the role of the teacher and student. Do you even feel like that's relevant anymore, especially with technology, especially with people feeling like they try to shortcut the process? What do you feel about that?
That's a great question. Well, being in martial arts, and obviously there's a lot of people that consider wrestling a martial art, and many people that don't. But for the most part, it's became more of a sport, but it still has that obviously martial art aspect to it. And I think that again, that giving and receiving is vital. And I remember you saying that during one of the classes. I think it was something like a year and a half ago, and that really stuck with me. That is one of the most important things. And you look at it in the martial arts world, these instructors, they sense, excuse me, these students become senpais or assistant instructors, and then become senseis, and instructors as well to give back. And so many of them I know, and wrestling is another perfect example. Whereas I don't see it in many other sports. In wrestling, I would see all the alumni come back on a
Mhm.
regular basis. And that was something I used to do on a regular basis. Heck, still love to, and I wish I had more time to. Obviously, my high school's in New Jersey, so I can't go back there. But anytime I go back visit during wrestling season, I'm in there many times as I can. Um, I used to do that the same thing when I helped out the high school down in San Diego, and my hopes and plans, in the future is to get into Palomar as well, a lot more. But especially with martial arts is going back to the schools and to those instructors that gave you so much, and then helping them by giving back. And that's one thing, especially a lot of these students that I've seen at the dojo I'm at now that have been around since 4, 5, 6 years old are hopefully learning to, as they get older, 16, 17, 18, to want to give back and to understand that was the purpose of this, was to learn all this, because again, for me, wrestling and martial arts saved my life in so many different ways. You talked about the dark side, and that brought me into the light on multiple occasions, because the dark side caused me so much grief, so much anger, so much frustration, so much guilt, so much regret, so much shame. And the more and more I focus on the dark side, the more and more I focus on the regret, the guilt, and the shame, and it just kept spiraling, spiraling, spiraling. And I've shared with you, quite a bit of it. But coming from a cop and a Marine background, and then going to becoming a thief and God, a drug addict and homeless and doing all these other things to, again, like you said, survive. But having martial arts to come back to not only for me to learn, but then to know that I can give back there, because that was something that I felt comfortable in. And I also know how much it gave for me. So I want to give back. And now I've gotten to the point where I want to give back in other areas of my life, not just the areas that I am passionate about, like martial arts and wrestling, but in anywhere, helping somebody move. That used to be my biggest burden and stress. But now all of a sudden somebody helps. I'm running over there. I'm like, yes, I get up, I work out pretty regularly. I stay in shape so that I can help out other people, and not just to help out in martial arts and wrestling. But I also feel like martial arts and wrestling are now my window to into people's hearts and souls, for me to share my story and to share my, because again, as we talked about earlier, well, not as we talked about earlier, as I'm saying right now, is I didn't think I could ever get back to getting on the mats. I didn't think I could ever get back to living. I thought I was done. I was 100 pounds heavier than I was. My body was a complete wreck. My mind was, I couldn't ever see this. I couldn't. And so thank again, martial arts always gave me this, well, maybe I can, because it got to the point where I couldn't do a push-up. I couldn't hang from a pull-up bar. I couldn't touch my own toes. And so the idea that ever getting back on the mat, but because of all that I'd done in martial arts and in wrestling, that's also what, kept that window open for me. Like, I can, if I keep doing it and do what I did before, which
Yeah.
was small, tiny, consistent steps.
Yeah, yeah, it's yeah, those some great points. Yeah, I mean, I think, I mean, even talking about, you said that even like martial arts and wrestling is a a window into other things. Um, I totally agree with that. I mean, I think that's something I sort of, not really play around with a lot of my my wrestling, my adult wrestling class. Like, it's not really playing around, but I do say things in a way that, yes, we are talking about wrestling, but we're not. Um, and so I think with that, like I use wrestling, and I think you're doing that. Really a living testimony to it, but using wrestling, using martial arts as a window to really just being a better human. That's something that I really preach on, even with my classes. Is like, look, I want you to be a good human first. I'm not expecting you to be perfect, but even you don't understand like what some of the like smallest little gestures for people, what they would do for people. Even like, I mean, I know I'm from the South. We're always used to holding the door for my elders. So even anytime I go to a store or something, I hold the door for someone. Like, that's just programmed in me. Like, that's something that I just do. And for a lot of people, that could be like the biggest gesture they've had. I mean, I think that respect, and especially respect for elders, I think it's slowly diminishing. We feel like, I know everything now. I've got this, little phone. I know everything. I've got everything, all the information at my fingertips. And we have knowledge, but we don't have wisdom. And
Yeah.
that's why I'm so not really passionate, but I'm really adamant about like wanting to learn from my elders, like being in, having them advise me on different, like, hey, if I need to reach out, and sadly, my grandparents passed away, but like, even with my granddad, like I always used to be able to like, hey, see certain things he were doing, or maybe even like talk to him about certain things, or just things he was in training in me that I didn't even realize at the time. Even, even just one little quick story with my granddad. It was like I was in middle school, and he would make me like he would sit there on the porch, and I would have to run. He wanted a newspaper at the convenience store. The convenience store is probably about half a mile away. he would make me, he's like, hey, look, go run, go run to the store, get the newspaper at the time, 25, 50 cents or whatever. Um, go get the newspaper and then run back. And he had me doing that the entire summer. That was for me, I was like, I didn't know any better. It was like, hey, I got to run to the store. So he had me literally running to the store every day. And at the time, I didn't even realize it, but like all these little things, like was I always feel like there's always breadcrumbs in your life, and there's always things that get put there for a specific reason. You don't know what it is, but when you look back and you see the things that's unfolded, you're like, oh, that's why I did this. Like that's
Yeah.
why I had to run those sprints. Even he used to do a community garden, and he taught me how to like till the land, how to put the seeds in place, and like all these little concepts I didn't even realize that I am, talking about now in my classes. Like, golly, he was showing me this years ago, um, but I didn't know it at the time. I thought I was just helping him, tend to the garden. I mean, which was cool, but you just don't know what things people, your elders, are putting in place until you realize it down the way. I'm like, man, that's what they were talking about. So, yeah.
How awesome is that?
Yeah,
That
it's weird. Even with him passing away, even with actually with my mom and my uncle, him passing away, I find myself still learning from him, which is always weird. Not really weird, but it's just one of those like they're even in another world, in the spirit world in heaven, they're still sharing me, sharing those secrets, sharing those lessons with me that I'm like, wow, I'm glad when I look back, you know, I'm glad I was able to be there to, to learn or learn those lessons. Um, because now I feel like, I need to, that's for me to use in my life, and then I need to pass that on to a younger, generation. Um,
and how
but
amazing is that gift, right?
huh?
I said, how amazing is that gift, right?
Oh
Especially
yeah,
when
yeah.
someone connects.
It's wild. Yeah, it's wild. And I do find myself, even with my Palomar College kids and all them, I see them as my kids. And just things that like I see them, and they're in different stages of their life, but just understanding, like just reaffirming for them, like, hey, you got a lot of life. There's so much stuff that that you're like you have the opportunity to do. Be patient with yourself. Go after what you want, but I'm here to just be in your corner. I'm here to just let you know, hey, we'll work if you want it, we'll work at it, but don't feel like your life is over at 27 or at 30. It's like I'm learning now. Your life is just beginning.
Yep.
I'm still rolling around and training. There's still so much to learn, and there's and so don't. I was like, you're 20 something years old, 17, you're a baby. You have you have a lot of things to learn. But yeah, so I find myself being a mentor for a lot of them, and at the same time, I'm learning just as much from them. Learning patience, learning uh, how to really connect with people. Um, understanding that, you know, people generally model what they see, not what I say. Um, so
Yep.
all those little things, um, but we'll segue here because I know you were a wrestler in New Jersey, and this series is called Out of Bounds because I do want to talk about some just various topics, and honestly I'll probably end up having you on for another episode here. And then I actually got my brother. He's actually going to start. He's supposed to help co-host with me. He wasn't able to get to be on today, but he does plan on trying to co-host with me. But I'm wanting to segue into some out of bound topics here, and you were talking about New Jersey, so I was like, huh. I was like, I am one of those. If you can tell from the background, I love sci-fi and things of the universe, and even with the drones and the UAPs and everything else that's sort of flying around, actually on the East and West Coast now, but they've really been focused on New Jersey. What do you, in your perspective, like, what do you feel about that?
'Gosh. So I think I've told you before, I was a huge conspiracy theorist, which caused me to go down some real deep dark holes. Just looking at what's going on in this world, and it caused a lot of anguish, and honestly, it ended up helping me heal a lot because I realized again these things outside myself I can't control, but what I can control is my emotions. And but with that being said, I I honestly think it's more of a distraction. I don't know exactly what's going on. I don't know if it's our government. I don't know if it's individual people. I don't know if it is from another world, another universe. I don't know, but I do believe I believe that especially the drone aspect is our government just distract us again. I think there's a lot of things out there that are being used as distractions from TV, from movies, from politics and things of that nature to keep us from knowing how powerful we actually are, you know, how who we truly are. And honestly, I had no idea who I truly was, even not even a glimpse of who I was until I went down these all these rabbit holes from all these near death experiences, from all these rock bottoms. And so because I do think there are just so many distractions out there to keep us focused on these things of the world rather than working on figuring out who we are and how we work, and how our life is. So I think that that's a big part of it. I do, if I'm going to go deeper, I do think possibly that, oh gosh, that maybe that these are light beings, that these spheres that supposedly that the drones are after are these light beings, which are possibly of that people that were humans that became um, of an enlightened state, or are beings that used to be here that evolved into something else. I don't know, but I do think our government is sharing a lot more knowledge that they've had for a long time. And there's the part of me, the conspiracy theory part, that thinks that they're doing it to distract us. But then there's also this other side that thinks that they're doing it to try to protect us. Because I think if all the knowledge that this government, or that the people of this world knew, if they dumped that on our laps, I think most of us would start jumping off buildings tomorrow.
Yeah.
It would absolutely destroy us if we were being told that all these things that we believed were not no, were actually not true. We, because that was a big part of what caused my near death experience of rock bottoms. This idea of this awakening,
Mhm.
and seeing that all these things that I thought was reality is not, and that I have a lot more control over my life than I thought. Through mindset training, through breath work and things. I thought I was this. I thought I was my meat suit. I thought this vessel was me, and this vessel was what told me when I was tired, when I was hungry, when I was thirsty, when I could, when I was injured, when I could do this, when I can do that, rather than it being the other way around.
Mhm.
So I know I went down the rabbit hole on this, but I,
Hey, that's why it's called out of bounds. That's
so whether it's a distraction intentionally or not, or if it's being used to awaken us. Because I think the same thing with COVID. I think COVID was used as a distraction, but I also think it worked as a great tool to awaken us, to get us to start asking questions. And I think that's the biggest thing: is what is that? What is that doing? Why is that here? Why am I here? Why, and asking all these questions rather than just accepting, you know, what's been laid in front of us.
Yeah, and I think that's for I think I think people do get to that point. They go through their lives, and they go through their what they feel like was supposed to be their dream, or feel like, hey, this is how life is supposed to work. It's supposed to be this linear. Hey, I go to school, I get this amazing career or job, I get my 2.5 kids and my
White
picket
picket
fence
fence.
and my house, and I'm supposed to have my savings and everything else. And you learn quickly that it's not the way that it works. Matter of fact, a lot of people that get everything they want, they end up saying like this, like this isn't it. This was not it. I just talked to a couple. And I have to tell you, I'll have to share this story later. But it was a couple I met at the Sunset Market out here, and they were actually just ordered like some Moringa super mix powder that we're going to be taking. And he was talking, yeah, a former wrestler too. Um, and he's actually from New York. And Lord and behold, I ended up talking to him. But yeah, he was saying that, hey, we got everything that we thought we wanted. He was a cop too. Everything he thought he wanted, and then figured out this, like, this wasn't it. And sort of he just sort of comes around full circle. And, we're talking about health and like being able to allow the body to heal, knowing that the body can heal. And yeah, definitely someone I wanted to put in my contact. Like, I was like, yeah, we'll be talking more. So I'll definitely have to get you in contact with him. But yeah, it's just, yeah, I think sort of just going back real quick to what's going on with the things that's popping up. I really feel like um, I think things happen in cycles and patterns. There's things that I think need to happen. Um, that's necessary to happen. Especially if we're supposed to evolve. If we're supposed to evolve as a humanity, as a society. Um, I think things need to show up to remind us. Um, And at the same time, too, I mean, there's been, I mean, without really going into deep diving into some things, there's been other texts and things where you've seen different light beings or people beings from other dimensions like appearing throughout history. Actually, throughout important times in history. I'll give one quick example. Supposedly, at I think the Battle of Gettysburg, when George Washington, and I'm not the biggest historian, but I do remember it was a story where it was a critical time in the war for independence, and they said that they saw a light orb flying through, I think around Gettysburg, I believe. When it was somewhere where Washington was crossing the Delaware or something like that. Like it was like some crazy stuff that was going on. So like all these important, parts in history, like there's always been something that's been showing up. I really feel like something like this is probably another facet in our history. That maybe there's certain things that may pop up. I'm a big fan. Like I said, I'm a big fan of this stuff. Not really a fan, but more of a seeker. But even with the movie Arrival, you had these ships come in. There's 3,000 years in the future. They come back in trying to help save humanity, but they tell them they needed humanity to be at a certain level because humanity is going to help them out. So it's just one of those like, hey, these things start to pop up. You have to start asking, what's the bigger reasoning behind this? But some people see it. I mean, it could be a distraction. It could be a distraction for something bigger. It could be a completely different distraction from something else. Unless you're on the chess table, you're moving the pieces. Sometimes you don't know. You don't know if you're a pawn or if you're, what you are. But it is really intriguing that and from what I heard, I guess it's been stories in New Jersey in that area anyway of just crazy stuff popping up. Um, and but I think now it's sort of taken. I think people are starting to, where UAPs and things would be like, that was taboo, or people think you're crazy. Now people are starting to accept these that there may be other beings or other things that we just can't explain. I mean, even on this planet, there's so many things that we can't explain that we're still trying to figure out about this planet. And I think that's the coolest thing, knowing that we feel like we know everything, but we don't. We have no clue, what's going to pop off in the next 5 to 10 to 20 years. Things that we couldn't even comprehend that's going to show up and like, oh my Lord, this might have been the missing connection to everything. Like we just don't know. Um, but I think with you and me and others, like having that open mind, um, and at the same time too, having a critical mind, understanding, hey, look, okay, this is what we're seeing right now, but being open enough to say, what if, we start going into maybe using our imaginative mind, like, okay, let's just say if this was humans from 100 years, 1,000 years in the future. Like what are they trying to show us if they had to come back as something else completely different? What are they trying to tell us, or what are they trying to protect us from? That's always the question. But um, interesting times. It's some interesting times right now.
Well, one thing to touch on from what you said earlier, as well as this here, is I truly believe that there's no such thing as coincidences.
Yeah.
Ever since I sat back and started looking at all when you were talking about our elders, ever since I sat back and looked at all the things that happened in my life, I've been able to connect that this happened for this to happen, and this happened for this to happen. That butterfly effect, and because all those things were a huge part of what drugged me down and held me down. Thinking about overdosing, with my kids in a motel room, thinking about how I cheated, on my all my exes, thinking about when I was stealing as a cop, all these things I was doing in this survival mode used to destroy me. And the more and more I thought about it, the more and more guilt and shame and regret that I had from it. But then I also realized that allowed me to then relate and resonate with people that I would have never been able to. And so the deeper, the darker the holes were that I climbed out of, I was able to again be able to relate with other people, and then realize that those things happen so that this can happen, so this can happen. So, and then I started, again, realizing that every single thing happened for a reason. And when you start realizing that, to include the home invasion that I was involved in, the car wreck, and so many other, again, near death experiences, that I'm like, wow, it just helped me realize a lot. It really did. But one of the biggest things was just how much more in control we are than we believe we are. We were given this gift of free will, and we can choose the things that we've chosen, and most of us have. And so back to what we were talking about, this whole idea of distractions, I definitely think it's happening for a reason. And again, there's some kind of message, some kind of lesson that we need to learn from it. And each one of us, it might be different.
Mhm.
You might see that, and that might relate to your life this way, and I might see it and it relates to my life that way. But I think the bigger these events are, the more it's going to connect with us, and help us, see what we need to see, I guess. Like
Yeah.
you
And
said,
I, I and I and to segue on that, I think as long as we have re, I guess a receptive or a willing part to understand, because you could be coming from a whole different perspective, and maybe a version of me 15 years ago, maybe I'm sort of rooted in a specific religion or whatever, and I'm be like, no, this my way is the only way. Like, no, I don't believe. Like, you're crazy for saying that. Like, why would you even think that? Like, I don't believe in UFOs, or all this stuff is fake. Um, you know, I think that's where we start to get into that divide, feeling like my branch is the only branch on a humongous tree. that's
yes, I
that's
like that. Oh, Q, I used to argue and debate the most nonsensical stuff. I would spend hours trying to prove somebody that New Jersey is better at wrestling than California is. And I would spend hours looking at all the All Americans from years past, college and high school. I'd be, and mind you, again, this was just a distraction from my life, but I would argue and debate. I lost a sponsor when I was fighting MMA because of arguing and debating, again, about who's a better MMA fighter. And I wasn't even arguing for myself that I was better. I was saying this guy was better than that guy, and making these, Paul Bunyan can beat up Jesus, and just these nonsensical. And I was so set in my way. It was my way or no way. I used to do the same thing with sports. My favorite teams, New York Yankees, they won 27, world championships, and then nobody's better. And oh gosh, it was exhausting. Again, I was so, and I I don't want to say ruined, but I caused a lot of animosity to, around everybody that was around me, whether it was my kids or my wife or my ex-wife, excuse me, my mom, my sister. It was my way or no way, and everybody was just like, they don't want to cause the hurricane that is Rich, to start up. So if Rich wanted sushi, guess what? We're getting sushi. If Rich wanted Mexican food, we're getting. it was just easier, than having to
Yeah.
deal with me because if not, I would go out of my way to make everybody else's life miserable.
Yeah, you didn't need Hurricane Rich for running around.
Uh, and,
Oh,
and I knew it too, and I didn't want to do it. It was exhausting. Like all these things that I've mentioned, all these things that I did that were illegal and that were morally wrong. I didn't want to, but it was like my nervous system or something neat. I needed this to put me back in alignment, and mind you, it would be for 2 seconds. I'd be back in alignment or feel that peace, and then I'd be right back to where I was before. Because again, I had no control over anything.
yeah,
But yes, being open minded to these things and seeking these things out is where the answers are. Because if not, then we don't see it as something that we see it as just a lying distraction, and that's it. Period. And we push it away, and we don't even look into it.
yeah. And I think that sort of goes back to the breadcrumbs. Like you don't know what this, what God, the creator, the universe, you don't know the breadcrumbs that's been put out in front of us as a humanity, as a
Yes.
society. Like
What's
things
it
that
leading
need to
to?
be put out, like we were seeing as like, oh, that's, that could be a distraction or oh, that's not real. And we're getting these messages from different, all kinds of phenomena that starts to pop up. Like we have to start realizing like, hey, there's something that could be possibly being shown to us that we don't have the eyes to see yet.
Yes.
Um, so it's really intriguing to me. I'm curious to see where this unfolds, and how how everything sort of plays out. But that's been the curious, spirit of me. I've always, I know I've done some talks before, and I've said that I've got two parts of me that sort of combines together. My uncle, he was a science teacher, and he had more of the analytical, um, scientific side, and that was something that I was rooted in. And then I had more of the intuitive side with my mom and my uncle doing, in the arts and everything, and they sort of just merge and blend together. Understanding like, it's all one. It's just understanding like how does it work? I mean, even the things that we have now, if someone from the 1900s came into 2024 and they saw what were like the phones and everything they had, they would believe it was like witchcraft and magic. Um, so it's just understanding like what we're actually seeing, and like I said, maybe we don't have the knowledge to understand what it actually is. Um, but let's play around real quick before we sign off here. If you was a some kind of interdimensional being, uh, and you came back, you had to come back to give a message to Earth. How would you do it?
Whew. How would I do it, or what would it be?
It's up to you. Whatever you want
Okay.
to.
So I'll be honest, it would probably be the same way that I'm doing it now. For me, to a certain degree, sometimes I feel like I'm some kind of intergalactic being that I have a message to share with people because I've lost everything. And then I gained everything back, and then I lost it all again, and then I gained it back. And I did that about 3 or 4 times because, like you said about the friend earlier, I was a cop. I had a side business, side job, wife, 2 kids, car, 2 cars, a house. I had everything I thought, and then I lost it. And then I gained everything back in a different way and then lost it again. And then finally at the end, I finally gave it away. And because I realized all these things, are distractions for us. And so the message would be to really to look within, to look within, with ourselves. And for me, silence and solitude was the answer, as well as breath work. As breath work helped me with that pause, that uncomfortness, because when I started going down to the beach or to parks or to the mountains or whatever, and got out of society and away from people and sat with those thoughts, by myself, I didn't like them. I didn't like those thoughts at all. I couldn't do that. So the idea of meditation and things like that. So breathing helped me to deal with that discomfort inside, that tightness in my chest, and so that allowed me to then sit with it, because before the breath work I couldn't sit with it. I know you hear that a lot, be still and sit with it. So for me, breath work helped me sit with it, and so sitting with it would be the message. You just, again, being alone, and then finding that balance of being around people and community that are like-minded, as well as being with yourself, and especially so many of us have been programmed so deeply from, again, social media, from our families, from schools, from teachers, from new. I, as a Marine, I remember I got out of the Marine Corps. I was upset that I didn't go to war and have the opportunity to kill somebody. And I look back at that now, and I think about the insanity behind that, that I was willing to go kill some other child that was just doing the same thing that I was doing, which was, protecting their country, or being this, protector. And I was going to go kill somebody that had absolutely nothing against me. I had nothing against him. Another child of God, why, but all of a sudden he's been created to be my enemy. So for me, again, to go back to your original question, I'm trying to use my message through martial arts, through wrestling, because, as well as obviously the Marine Corps and law enforcement, because those are all the communities that I'm still involved with, and to sort of share that message there, that there's another way, and I'll be honest, love. I think love is the answer. And Jesus said it, I think, best. I don't think that's the only way, but I do think Jesus's way is the most direct way. I think whenever, when he says, to follow me and the path that he's laid out, I think other religions, other spiritual communities, I think they all have very similar ways to creating heaven here on earth. But I think Jesus' way was just the most direct. And when we can just love ourselves, love this vessel, love the people around us, love the animals, and just treat everything in a loving way, it just makes life so much easier and simple. It just makes it, I don't have to worry about, looking over my shoulder for that one person that I hurt or said something bad to, or did something wrong to, or that I stole, or that when we're just doing things in a loving manner, it is, there's no more regrets, there's no more feels, there's no more fears, there's no more guilt, there's no more shame. It's just, you can live authentically. You don't have to worry about, did I offend that person? Did I say that, thing wrong?
Yeah.
And so I guess that'd be my message would be love.
I like that. That's a good I think that's a good sound off for this episode. Yeah, love. I mean, that's yeah, simple, but the hardest thing to do at the same time. Uh, thank you, Rich. I'll you know what, I know I'll have you back on because I wanted to talk more. I want to talk more about breath work or some other things. So I'll definitely have you on for another episode of this. And but yeah, hey, this is the first of many of this new Out of Bounds series. So we're talking a little bit about sports, a little bit about life, and a little bit about the beyond. So once again, this will actually, I'm going to have this up on the YouTube page. This will probably be a subsection of the Creative Brew. So I'll probably have this released out. But I do plan on creating a whole separate podcast for this. But right now it's sort of underneath the Creative Brew. So you'll see this released out here pretty soon. And we're just keeping it, like I said, keeping it real. Understanding that everyone's got their own perspectives, and but everybody's welcome. It's one big universe, and everyone is welcome to their own opinion. That's the beautiful thing about it. So hey, once again, thank you, Rich, for having coming on. And how can people connect with you before we sign off?
Insta Most social media is Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. Rich Dalton is usually falls under there, fitness training for you, but Rich Dalton usually. But yeah, I obviously love to share more information. And thank you so much for having me on. This was awesome.
Oh, no
Love
problem,
your
Rich.
idea.
Appreciate it. Hey, once again, this is Out of Bounds, and have a good day.